a scion of many worlds. There had been an undercurrent of fear in the last few days. The lowest of the low, the Forgotten, had been shuddering and wailing in fear. Something had the witless wretches completely on edge, and no amount of whippings, torture, or punishment of any sort could stop it. They kept dropping things, shivering in dark corners and trying to hide from something that only the wretched Forgotten could detect. Then, all at once, it happened. On the third day since the Forgotten began to whimper and cower, dawn broke to reveal a fortress surrounding the capital, a wall to match their own without gates or windows, just battlements glaring out at them. The wall broached into the sea and cut off their port. The city had gone from utterly uncontested and unopposed to surrounded overnight, and they had no idea who it was that had silently encircled them. It was clear Erumenta work. But beyond that, there was no clue. The pitiful wretches of Miru and Greenstone were too frail and disorganized to do something like this. The serpents of the false goddess and her rebelling daughters were too busy daring each other to attack first to attempt this. There were metak along the walls among the many other races, but there were all races there. Even sightings of an Urthani of all things. Where are they all coming from? The roads leading here are not wide enough to support so many. The lands are nowhere near so fertile to sustain such an army. Where are their supplies and woman power coming from? She asks herself. Most mighty, a nearby slave begins. What? She demands the cringing bitch. As a Foza, her voice is strong enough to bend another in half with ease. They're flying strange flags. Flags? What kind of flag? She demands, turning before trailing off as she sees the strange moth-like constructs floating over the walls. It was like an entire swarm of juvenile Urthani were watching from the sky. But that doesn't make sense. Urthani are larval before fully developing. What are those things? Slave. What are those? Some kind of flags, most mighty? I do not know. Someone drag a silk weaver up to me. See if she can't identify whatever it is that's using the image of her race. She orders before returning to glare out the window again. How had they not seen this coming? Where and who manages to unite so many, and for what? It couldn't be the Empress, immortal or not. The woman has simply never had the teeth for hard combat or sieges. The midwives had been caught sneaking out others of their number, but the organization's paladin force is pitiful compared to even the average Most Mighty's personal guard. It takes merely minutes until the pathetic trilling wretch is brought to her. That the quivering thing is surrounded by opulence beyond her wildest imaginings is clearly beyond the stupid thing's comprehension as her guards drag the moth creature to stare outside. What do those mean? The Most Mighty asks, and the trilling stops. What? That doesn't make sense. The Urthani stammers out after a time. She feels the back of the Most Mighty's glove. I asked not for sense. I asked for an explanation. Now give me one. Most Mighty, they are children's toys. Used to teach larvae how to spin their silk most effectively. Too thick and they cannot glide, too thin and the silk snaps. Children? Do those look like larvae? Do those even look like Urthani? The only Urthani among them is there. The Most Mighty demands before the sniveling wretch gasps. What? That Urthani? She is much too large to stand as such. She is thrice as tall, if not more so. The slave whimpers and the Most Mighty glares out to the wall. There is a titanic figure glaring out from among the masses. The white puffy head and distinctive back-swept antenna of the Urthani are clearly visible. Considering that the metak on her shoulder may very well be fully grown and just how far the wall is. Where did the giant Urthani come from? The Most Mighty asks her servants. Milady! One of her guards points back out and she turns in time to see the Urthani blur through the air and then come to a stop, wings spread out and unmoving as she just hovers outside the veranda. The armor-clad moth is utterly terrifying up close and her eyes are directly pointed to the wretched silkweaver. It then lets out a trill, one the slave answers. It goes back and forth for just a few moments, and before anyone can so much as ask as to what is going on, the massive one nods and rushes forward. The veranda railing shatters, the wall buckles inwards, and the most mighty and her guards are swept back in a heartbeat. There is a gasp of pain and a pulse of the power that rushes over them all like a wind. The silkweaver stands, looking up in sheer awe at the massive warrior Urthani, who then sweeps her into its arms and with a snap of the wings is halfway to the walls again. "Easy now, easy. You're safe," Jasper assures her. You've done this?" she asks. "They've done this. I've just led the way," he replies as he lands behind his own lines. "Why haven't you spoken to the city or made any demands?" she asks, and he lets out an amused trill. "We're not fully ready yet. We're just making sure they can't run before we give the ultimatum," he tells her, and she goes quiet. "What ultimatum?" she asks. "Complete and total surrender, or we collapse the entire city into the earth and bury it alive. Then we let the sea in and drown the survivors. Those that endure that have to deal with our swords. There will be no grand battle, there will be no holdouts, no last stands, and no negotiations. The slaver empire ends, or the life of every slaver ends," Jasper says, and she gasps up at him. "They were on the list to begin with. That they harbor one of the worst criminals this blasted world has ever seen just put them on the top of it." "The list?" "The long list of things I need to do to make this world a proper one. On it includes such things as cure old age, although that one's in progress, end famine, conquer drought, teach and heal all, and several dozen other things to do." He says things like that and says that he doesn't want to be worshipped. A nearby Arumenta notes as she stares up at this impossible Urthani towering over her. "I've not done anything that any of you cannot do. I'm just the first one to get to it," Jasper replies. "Now, young lady, you told me that you know much about the city, right? About many things in the city, right?" "Yes, We have a map of the city. I'd like you to tell me about as many slave quarters as you can and where the forgotten are being kept," Jasper says. "Why?" "So we can rescue them all before we give the full ultimatum. The search and rescue operations are living and dying on the information you can give us." Jasper continues to explain as he helps her through the crowd and onto the staircase beyond it. He jumps off it and flutters down before stopping in midair and gesturing for her to follow. She does and descends with him into a small city of tents. He holds out his hand to help her down and offers an encouraging smile. "You've been very brave so far and the worst is behind you. But we need your help now so we can help more people. Can you do that?" "Yes, but the Most Mighty, she will be angry. Leave her to me. I'm a big flappy distraction that will keep all the Most Mighties very busy, very confused, and looking very much the wrong way when we get everyone out safely," he assures her before pointing. "You see that tent there? Go there when you're ready to explain what you know about the city. But before then, go to that green one to the left of it for a nice hot meal, and the blue one beside it will get you some new clothing and a way to get far away from here. But please, go to the white tent before you depart. The more we know, the more people we can save." I will. Thank you so much," she says as it finally falls into place that this is real. This is actually happening and she's not dreaming. The marking was torn off her and dispelled. She's out of the city. She's free. "Good girl. Now if you'll excuse me, there's more to do," he says, before stepping away and quickly fluttering up to the top of the wall where he poses on the edge and glares out into the city. He then starts stalking along the walls. "Hey," someone says, and she turns. Her antennae have already told her that it's a Nagasha with many arms, but she's still somewhat surprised to see her. There's a veil of sheer unreality to the world. The markings around her armbands are unmistakable. "So, that Orthani, is she as the Empress is to you? I mean, where was she before? Why didn't she come sooner?" "I don't know. I don't have the answers. A call was sent out to all kingdoms and empires hurt by the slavers, and now we are here. I have seen miracles. I have witnessed my ancient grandmother return to her childhood and body. I have slithered across the distances of entire continents. It is somehow swifter to go to the opposite side of the world and then here than it is to come here from my great-grandmother's temple. I am told that greater Orthani is responsible for all of it. My grandmother's renewed youth, the walls rising. I've been told entire nations have bent to their will." The Nagasha answers. "The sacred ancestress. She speaks of him as an equal, and he speaks to her as one as well." "The truly mighty," she whispers. "What is your name, or are you—" "I am not of the forgotten. I am Gale. They called me Wind Dancer back home. I was always too bold, too reckless. It saw me in chains. And one boulder still has broken those chains," the Nagasha says. "I am Helen Coral. Follow me. Having some food in your stomach tends to help before speaking to his champions. You speak oddly of her. He and his... That Orthani is something other than a woman. Supposedly the other half of the Orthani people that was lost. All our peoples lost the other half. The midwives themselves claim that what they do is a pale imitation of what he can do. That the children born of a man grow stronger with each generation as a rule. But the midwives take great care to ensure the child does not end up weaker and frailer than the mother. There is more besides, although the rescued midwives have been short upon details. I still don't understand." "What is happening?" Gale asks, and Helen gives her an odd look. "Everything is. He has made the vows of rescue anew. He has conquered nations. He has fought in the arena of the heretics. Some say he has even drawn himself back from the afterlife to live again while still living." "What?" "I don't understand it either. The only thing that makes sense is that he somehow reached beyond and drew wisdom from it." "Is he a god?" "He says he isn't." Helen replies, and Gale just gives her a confused look. "If he is to be believed, he's just a soldier in some army from beyond, and others are coming as well." "What kind of army has soldiers that conquer nations?" Gale asks, as she tries to consider what an entire legion of beings like that gigantic Orthani would be like. What could be so fierce that an army of unstoppable giants needs to be raised against it? How do you raise an army of unstoppable giants? I don't know what to think. Neither do I, but if it helps wipe away this blight, then I will offer it what help I can. Come along now. I wager slaves aren't fed anywhere near enough in that pit. No. Water, thin gruel, and the occasional table scrap. Well, why don't we get some fresh fruit to start with? Helen offers, and Gale smiles. Things might not be making any sense, but they are looking to be far better than they were. Jasper prowls along the wall. There are a lot of places that the shadow has been throughout the city. The main tower she was in is obvious, but there are so many defensive carvings that attacking it directly is nothing short of insane. But she's been leaving a trail of sorts. She's clearly pissed off and dragging on the energies. He can almost trace the patterns, and she was at the palace he just swiped that slave girl from, just hours ago, in fact. However, she didn't take the bait, no attack on his person, which means that his order of business is getting all possible hostages away until he engages. If she won't fight on his terms, then he will undermine hers until there's nothing left. Couple that with his plan to literally shake the city as a threat and outright drop it down a pit if the threat isn't taken seriously and he's got a good plan going. Now, how is she going to screw it up for him? It will go wrong, but how?